Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this podcast is for you. Recruiting is a battlefield where the rules keep changing and the chaos never stops. As the world shifted to remote work, real connection and unfiltered learning have never been more urgent. This isn't just a podcast, it's your survival guide. Welcome to the revolution, your digital bullpen.
Oh my God. Finally.
It's so long since I've seen your face. Paul, I see all the time, but
yes. I know boss lady's on the podcast this go around.
And you got boss lady behind you too. That's the term.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Literally my inspiration, Lanell, right there.
We got Lanell.
Absolutely.
We're so grateful to have you on the Digital Bullpen. Welcome. You are now officially part of the Digital Bullpen fam. But
thank you.
Before we start, anybody that's watching, remember, slam that like button. Mirna hates when I say slam it. Tap it, whatever. Tap that like button. Share us. Make sure you follow our page so we can grow our community and spread the love, what we have loved for so many years. And speaking of love, I am going to introduce Lanell Flint, who is so close to my heart. She is a powerhouse in the staffing industry. 20 years of experience in staffing and executive search. You've done it all. You've built high-performing teams. You've led major industry shifts. You've inspired recruiters to reach new heights. I'm one of them. You're currently a senior vice president for Vaco, formerly BVOH, during an acquisition, which you were a big part of, I believe. And you're continuing to grow basically companies and drive business through the Pacific Northwest, as well as other initiatives with the company. I will say this, Lanell is a leader at heart. Like, she pours everything she is into mentoring, coaching, and like really investing in people around her. She's someone who leads by example, builds culture. I mean, I could go on and on and on. So Lanell, we are so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you so much. You guys are both very dear to my heart as well. I'm so happy to see where you are in your careers right now. This did not surprise me at all when y'all started this podcast. I was like, this is so perfect. Why didn't you do it long time ago?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I gotta say.
And what's crazy is Lanell has literally known Paul and I since, and I say kids because I do feel like I was a kid back then, but she's known me since I was like 20, and I think you were like 23, Paul, right?
21. I mean,
21. Oh my God. Well,
I'll say a funny story. So I was working as a temp, and then Lanell was actually my recruiting manager at the time, and slinging me out of clients, and we just weren't finding the right role. And so Lanell actually brought me in as an administrative assistant about 25 years ago. Crazy. And I worked for Lanell as a young little 21-year-old finding my way in life. And I was not finding my way into work every single day, unfortunately. And because of that, Lanell actually fired me. And it's a funny story. She loves to tell people. She's like, hey, that's Paul. I fired him. I'm like, let's not. But I will say this, that it was one of those pivotal moments in my life where the way in which you did it was impactful, and your messaging was, and I think it's because the other admin quit and couldn't handle it. One of those two things. But you did tell me, you're like, listen, I don't know what you're doing, but if you can get your shit together and come back to work, I'll rehire you. And I did. And then just went through promotion after promotion. And I got to tell you, we've been through a lot together, lady, and I am so grateful to have you. So thank you for firing me.
Thank you. You are so welcome. It was so well.
Words that most people don't normally think would come out of their mouths, right? And it's an awesome story to share. Yes.
Well, you know what? You made a great latte, if you remember.
I do. That's that Starbucks. That's that Starbucks barista back.
You made a good coffee. No, you know what? The thing is that it is so ingrained in me from probably birth that what you know is not nearly as important as who you are and what you do, and most importantly, how you make people feel. Mm-hmm. And Paul makes everybody feel so positive. It's I mean, the high energy, it's just infectious, right? And our clients loved him and our candidates loved him. We loved him. It was like so boring when he was gone for the weeks that he was gone. And I was really sad. I was really sad about it. And, you know, it did whatever I said impacted him in a way that he actually kind of buckled down and I think realized it was time to, you know, metaphorically grow up. And he did. And I'm so glad that we had that opportunity to get back together, because when he came back, he thrived. And like you said, promotion after promotion, I knew he was worth the time and the effort, because you can just see instinctually, you know, when they have it, right? When people fall into recruiting, like we all do, you can see that it factor, and it was there. And so I'm so happy that we're still here years.
Yes.
I remember I lost my car and I called Lanell. I was like, I can't come to work anymore because I have a car. And she goes, F that, I'm picking you up. I'll be there in 10. Like literally drove me to work until I could get back. Like just that's the kind of, and that is the kind of leader you are. And so Lanell, I got to tell you, I want to tell your story real quick to all of our listeners. And you've had a fantastic career. So first off, who tricked you into coming into staffing? And then tell us about your career and how you got here today.
Absolutely. So it was a gentleman named Paul, who I believe still works at Robert Half in Arizona, Phoenix, Robert Half, as a matter of fact, because I was in Arizona at the time.
Oh my God, Paul is still there. I remember working with him. Do you remember me, Paul? He was on he was a firm search guy.
Walensky.
Are we talking Walensky? Oh my God. That I did not know you guys knew each other. That's wild.
He's the one that tricked me.
That's amazing. He's still killing it at Robert Half, by the way.
Absolutely. So
that is hilarious.
I was an accountant, right? I tried to be an accountant. Let's say that. I attempted to be an accountant. And I had a really great controller that I worked for who told me pretty much like, you need to go into sales. You're a high performer, meaning you get more work done than the normal or your peers, but then you go talk to them and you distract them and you like want to have fun and you're too social and you really should try sales. And
not the blueprint of an accountant, really.
Exactly. Not at all. And so I went to Robert Half and said, I need a new job, right? Like I need a job in accounting. My controller told me I talk too much and I need to be into a different career. I didn't tell him sales. And he said, well, what would be your perfect job? And I was at the time 22 or 23 as well, just, a baby. I think I was 23. And I naively, from a very small town, said, well, my ideal job would be to be able to like kind of do something like you're doing, but but sales, I want to do sales, but between the hours of 8 and 5, like corporate 8 and 5 job. And I know that doesn't exist. Like those jobs don't exist. And he was like, you've never heard of B2B sales? And I'm like, no. And so that was it. He said, you know what? I think you should talk to, my VP, who was Julie Clapp at the time. And she hired me and I went in to be a staffing manager doing rotation at the tender age of 23. So that's how I got into this. Much like many of our colleagues.
Yes.
Yes.
And now
they like to start us off young, which is good.
And you get that bug. And I tell you, that first year is how many times did you try to quit in your first year?
Oh my gosh. I can tell you how many times I cried. 365 days. 365 days I cried. I knew immediately this was going to be it for me. Like it's a love or hate thing,
Yes.
And I knew that I needed to go to industry, but I also knew I wasn't going to make it at Robert Half because I'm an ask for forgiveness, not a permission person. And I also have a problem getting in the office at 8 o'clock. Right, 8 a.m. on the dot, and I also at the time had a problem with just following like a recipe, right? A specific strict recipe. And so I knew I wasn't going to make it long there, and I was very, very fortunate that Robin Bumgarner, who also are all connected with, she had left and she had gone to what was at the time Accountants on Call. Owned by Adecco, and she pulled me over into the Adecco world to work in accounting and finance, doing sales. And I was I was totally in. And that started my 20-year venture with the Deco Group.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Oh my God.
20 years already. And it's so incredible because I know Paul and I have seen you in so many different like facets of your career as, you with us. But like, what's actually kept you so engaged and passionate about this work? Because obviously it's an environment where there's a lot of turnover. You're managing these teams, you're building these teams, the economy changes. So you have to kind of change with that. Like, what keeps you doing this?
Everything you just listed. Absolutely everything.
Yes.
I am a sucker for punishment. I'm
Yes.
a sadist. I love chaos. I love the dynamic nature of this world. I love it strokes my ego to be needed, and we are needed in this world every single day by a myriad of people. And I just think it drives what fills my cup internally, right? And I've been asked a million times, why did you stay at a Deco specifically for 20 years? And I answer the same every time. It was like I was at 10 different companies during that time. Because you mentioned building, right? And that's been a huge driver for me in this industry to build and do new things. And so when I started with the Deco, it's accountants on call and accountants executive search, just those two little divisions of perm and temp staffing. And then we got to launch an administrative division, which I was allowed to do, a brand new line of business, Millennium Staffing.
Oh, I love it. That's my first temp paycheck came from there.
Yes, Millennium. Yeah, I remember Millennium Staffing for sure.
Which then we went through so we launched that, then we launched creative, and then we launched what else did we launch? But we opened up so many new locations to expand our footprint. And it was an opportunity for me to do all of those things that you just said, be in a disruptive environment, build teams, build brands, build locations, opened up New Mexico, opened up Utah, opened up Idaho. It was just so fun to me to be able to create. And then there was a side benefit that I didn't realize at the time because I was way too career ambitious and egotistical at the time, that I was creating good people, right? I was good at creating great colleagues and soon to be leaders. And that then morphed at that time when I was growing up mentally and emotionally, started to realize that was really my cup of tea, but also my superpower. And that's why I was able to stay so engaged at the highest level at all times, leaning in at all times at a Deco until I wasn't anymore. And then I had to leave, right? Which was 3 years ago. And I mourned that separation like it was.
Oh my gosh, we just talked about a divorce with Jamie yesterday. It's like you get divorced. We literally use that word.
And they get the house and they get the kids and they get everything, right? We keep all of our children and our pets and like everything. I really did mourn it. And people, some people have asked me after the fact in the last 3 years, like, are you kind of like glad? Are you happy to see that they're struggling? And my answer is no.
No, never.
Not. I am so sad for the people that are still there who built it alongside me, because there's a lot still there alongside. And so, but it is what it is. Until I was not engaged anymore, I wasn't able to lean in anymore. I decided that was it, and I was going to, have to make a change. But of course, it was going to be in this industry.
Well, and there's and there's such a thing of like, as a company outgrowing you or you outgrowing the company. And I, similar to you, like looking back, I'm like, I outgrew it and I knew it and I left when I did, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it was hard.
The emotion.
You do build the community. I mean, I was traveling to Seattle all the time to your teams. I loved going there. I loved spending the time. We were building out new training. We were doing the new hire 45. And I mean, we were traveling. I mean, I think Paul even went with me a couple times.
Oh, sure.
Right? it was just like a lot of fun doing that stuff. But you do, and you can outgrow companies, and that's
Yes.
okay. And find
Yes.
it sounds like you found a new home too.
Yes.
I did. Yeah, let's talk about that.
So a BVOH. So you started with BVOH, and I remember I was in the job hunt at that point. I was like, "Hey, you need a?" You're like, "Well, we're not in that place right now." But I remember like you were growing this business, and you were hired to, as I remember, to make them desirable.
Yes. So I left to go to a very small company, right? A boutique company in San Francisco. And their goal was to, either their goal was to grow, scale up. And that was for one of two reasons, either to sell or to get a PE backer or some investors to really grow ourselves internally and just become something bigger and more stable and more desirable. And they were a firm shop, really, in a really elite, high level, high end accounting and finance firm shop that had been in the industry for, when I joined, I think it was 18 or 19 years, and extremely well known, just like elite, really elite people.
Yes.
And they wanted to, they had attempted to try to, they dipped their toe into launching a consulting firm or a consulting line of business, let's put it that way, interim staffing at the same level that they were doing perm. So accounting managers and above. And what they finally realized after they had been dipping their toe in a few times was that they were perm leaders, they were perm producers, and that interim world was so incredibly different that everyone on the team at the moment was not suited for that type of staffing. And then they wanted to also open up new locations, one of which immediately was Austin. And they had just actually opened an office there when I joined. And so glad that I did. It was so different. Again, very small at the time. And within, I think it was 18 months, it could have even been a little bit less. We had grown, I believe it was, gosh, I don't want to misspeak. We grew a lot. We grew by at least 20 employees over that time. Wow. And then we grew in revenue by at least 20 million minimum $20 million in revenue in that year to 18 months. And so the buyer came knocking a little sooner than was planned. Initially, it was probably more of like a 2 to 4 year plan. And we just happened to, we did so well and we were so successful that timing worked for us and worked for the best partner I could possibly ask for. And that was Vaco Staffing or Vaco Holdings, I should say.
Yes.
And so, that change happened in October of 22. And obviously I was like, let's go. Like, I absolutely can handle this change management. I can, everybody was nervous about the change going from a small company. All of them had small company experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to,
it's scary.
Absolutely. It's very frightening. And I, of course, was like,
I do this all the time.
Acquisitions. Let's go.
Name changes, all of it.
It's in my blood.
Like getting yourself back out in the market as a different name. And and then also internal change, right? Of handling a new CRM system, right? Into another. Training, implementing the adoption of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was like, let's go. I'm so freaking stoked for this. But not to mention the very, very best people, you guys. I mean, the founders of this company they were old Robert Caffers, which many founders are, right? Many founders are. And they're just such solid people who were really doing it for the right reasons. And over 20 years, in the time that I've been in this business, they built their business from zero to over $1 billion. And I'm like, what the heck was I doing? Like,
I should have done this.
How did that happen? So I'm so
Yeah.
so thrilled
Awesome.
and excited for this venture that we're now into as well.
That's amazing.
It's so funny that you were talking about like change. I was on a conversation the other day with an individual, and they asked me like, "How do you deal with change management and dealing with change?" I'm like, it's kind of in my DNA. Like if we're not changing, I get bored, and that's a big reason. Like I ended up leaving the Robert Half. It was just this machine, and they had the recipe down. There wasn't a lot of change. The creativity wasn't and so. I love those kind of a little bit more chaotic environments. To your points, I thrive there, and so I think it's probably the narcissist in me likes to be needed too. So I get that point.
Oh, totally, 100%. Absolutely.
So many changes and so many teams that you've built across different companies and different geographies. Like, what is your approach with creating? I will say strong and loyal. Like I will say, Lanell's teams are like it is. They are the loyalists of the loyalists, like to Lanell, and they're motivated. And they're so. What's your secret sauce for that?
I think I've figured out after many years it's authenticity, and I've actually been smacked around for that a little bit by certain leaders, right? You shouldn't be so direct. You shouldn't be so close. Honest.
Close. Yeah.
Shouldn't be so honest. Not
transparent.
You need to have better. You need to build barriers, or not barriers, boundaries.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Yes.
I have no boundaries. I have absolutely no boundaries.
None at all.
Same.
Zero boundaries. And while I do agree that building some boundaries did help me, and I can go into that, it was more of a technical, tangible side of boundaries. But I think that honesty, and then being really drawing out and making people see what they are capable of.
Yes.
When they start to question themselves, because to your point, just a little while ago, Paul, you said, how many times did you quit in that first want to quit or try to quit in that first year?
Yes.
Everybody, I mean, by day 90, everybody is questioning, what am I doing?
Yes. What did I do?
And being able to go in and just draw, knowing the motivators, that why you hired that person. What did you see? What motivates them? What drives them? And why do you think they should stay here? Why do you think they are going to be successful? And then draw that out of them so they see it for themselves, right? And when you're able to turn somebody's confidence on, and you're able to gain the trust. The trust of someone who has literally put their life, their career in their hands, right? And then creating a psychologically safe place. And again, I've been kind of tapped for that a couple of times, being like, it's not really your job to create a psychologically safe place. It may not be my job. It is 100% who I am.
Totally. I think it was, I remember JD when she talks about this. And the one of the things I love about the teams that I've worked in is the teams, they allow you to bring all of yourself to work, right? You're good, you're bad, your problems, your dogs sometime, like it just everything. But I think that is, to your point, it is that creating that psychologically safe environment to where I know that if I'm having a bad day, it's okay. Like it's okay. Everybody does it. And it's not like we have to hide it, right? In some cases, people are like, go home. Have your bad day.
Exactly. Because you know what? I have those days, right? Yes. Now, I know that, in leadership, I do believe, one of my leadership principles is you can't have a bad day.
Yes.
You can't as a leader. But what I mean by that is you cannot show that in a toxic, hostile, and negative way, right?
Yes.
You definitely want to be vulnerable with your staff and let them know when you are challenged and struggling. And actually, there was a great video I kept meaning to send to you guys before today. I will send it to you, and I would hope you put it into the podcast chat, however you do that. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm not really technologically savvy.
What?
Nothing happened before this call started. Everything was great.
We don't have proof of it or anything. It's fine.
I don't know if you know that's a challenge of mine, but whatever you guys do, put that in there. It's a video. It says location. Where are you at? And basically, it's like a line. Are you above the line? Or are you below the line? And I have shared that video with many of my teams, but BVOH specifically, that team in San Francisco and Austin really latched onto it because they are so high EQ. They were, these women founders, Leslie, Amy, and Michelle, who are still awesome today and still driving like, I can't even. They're maniacs. They are just.
You met your match.
I'm actually like, look at me. I'm trying to find words.
You're like fangirling over them.
That. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to be them when I grow up. But
that's amazing.
They created a culture of elite, high performing people who have high EQ. And like, one of my favorite books ever is High Maintenance High Performers, because typically when you get those crazy high performers,
they're a little
challenging. Yeah.
They're
a little hard to lead and manage. And that is not the case there. So they really grabbed onto this philosophy of above the line, below the line. And so as a leader, a vulnerable leader, you can go in and say to your team, I'm below the line today. So, if I just bit your head off, or if I'm about to, right, I just want you to know it's not you. I'm dealing with, my own issues here. And it's a very quick 3-minute video. You should definitely.
No, I'm in because like I think I could use that in my relationship. Sometimes showing up and being
100%.
I'm like, listen, I'm below the line today. All right.
Exactly.
So
Show it to your husband, right? Absolutely. Show it to your husband and make sure he knows what that means. The other thing that we've grasped onto at Vaco, which was formerly BVOH, so I should start speaking Vaco language, is the your internal whiteboard. Right. And what does your internal whiteboard look like? And sometimes I will start a meeting with my leaders with a picture of a whiteboard with like just chaos, like, drama and, fireworks and things like that, or grumpy faces. Or sometimes I will like leave it completely blank, which means I am not in creative boss mode today. And I really don't want to lead. So can somebody else step up and take the charge?
That.
Right? And that in itself, allowing people to step in and take the lead for you and show that they're needed, right? That they're needed as an emotional partner as well. I don't know if that's fair to say, but that they're needed by their leader just as much as they need the leader, I think creates that loyalty that you're talking about and that connection.
And it continues the trust, right? Because it's like, I am trusting you to share with you that this is where I'm at today. Correct. I'm not here all the time, but because I'm here today, I'm asking who is willing to, take on this for me. And that's wonderful. Like, that's just saying like, I don't got it today. And who can help? You're just raising the hand, help. And I love that.
I don't want a boss today. That's,
I don't want a boss today.
That's it. And after this many years, it's kind of like when you're a parent, neither of you have that wonderful duty yet. It's the
not happening.
Like, I just don't want to, or
not built for it.
Say, I don't want to adult today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to adult today.
Yeah.
And that's, it happens in your work life too.
Yeah,
I love it.
Absolutely. Well, to kind of transition, because you've built these teams, you've built that loyalty, you've motivated so many teams that I've been help train. When you're looking at hiring, like what do you look for when hiring good recruiters, and what separates a good recruiter from like a great one?
Oh my gosh, we could be here for an hour, but I have to say that this very most recent economic downturn, has solidified that the answer to that question changes based on where the market is and where your book of business, like where your team's book of business is. How successful are you at that exact moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Because what I have looked for in the past and really actually even applauded and pushed is more, right? Like I want growth. I want big growth. I want aspirational people. I want people who were athletes and math decathlon winners and thirst chair violinists,
competitive,
right?
just that competitive. Yeah,
absolutely, right. And what I have found is that is absolutely a basis for a successful recruiter. But what happens when they are put in a position of challenge? What have they ever faced any sort of like serious disruption, maybe disruption
and failure, to feel failure too,
exactly.
like winners. Yes,
exactly. And so I want to know how they have persevered and also succeeded in a tough environment.
Yeah.
And were they, what you guys know, I say this word all the time, or this phrase, situationally successful. Were they situationally, like they can show me a pattern or a history of success. How did that success happen? Was it self-driven? Or was it that you happened to be the fifth person that turned over at Robert Half in the last 2 years and you walked into a book of business that was already there for you? Or do you work for a firm, a company where they feed you leads, or they, where you're a flipped business and those sorts of things.
Yes, makes sense.
So I want to see right now proven resilience in a downturn environment. I want to see that you have been in an environment where you had to create something. And what I mean by create is not necessarily going to the yellow pages. Can I say that now? Like,
yes, that was my first calls with yellow pages.
Yes.
I don't even know what the
printing out ads and
exactly.
But you had to be, you have the hustle. You had to hustle.
Yes, it's grit, it's hustle, it's moxie, right? All of that stuff. And I need to hear experiences, and that can be personal experiences. It really can, right? But how did you have to pull yourself up, your bootstraps? And one of my very, very favorite people who works for me right now, when I interviewed her, within probably maximum 30 minutes, all I kept thinking in my mind that kept going across is scrappy. So scrappy. And some people are like, why is that a good thing? Like, you know what? She's had to fight. She has had to fight in personal situations, in business situations, and she's never stopped fighting. So that's what I would say. And I don't know if that's helpful.
It's super helpful. And it's crazy because I remember when we went through the downturn in 2008, when our clients were all mortgage and banking and like and insurance, and then we didn't know what the hell to do. And you were our manager at that time. And that's when we put our ear to the ground. And that's really when leads and where those came from really affected my emotional compass in staffing. And that's when we decided to totally pivot and do non-clinical healthcare. And we're like, what the F is this? And it kept us alive, just pivoting to that because it kept us alive during that. And now that Mesa branch is still killing it because they have this diverse book of business because they let the market lead them. And so I think that's that tenacity and just being aware that kind of gets
We were the only office in Adecco at that time, or, the specialty division of Adecco that grew that year, that actually grew. And the president of the company came to visit us in person just to say, and we were so small, that office was small,
so small. Yes.
Oh my gosh. And we were like 5 people maybe. And we were the only group in there. And it's exactly that. We had a team of people who were fighters who trusted me enough to say, when I said, let's pivot, let's diversify, let's change industries, who the freak is hiring right now. And then I got these phenomenal recruiters who went and found non-clinical healthcare candidates, and we took them to market. And like you said, it kept us alive, and that office is still thriving, and that industry of non-clinical.
Oh my God, it's just that steady Eddie, so to speak.
Yes.
Steady Eddie, stretchy pants, love it.
Yes.
And just before we go on, I wanted to just ask you, Lanell, too, going back to hiring and how you kind of identify good recruiters. But something about Lanell that I've learned, and I always would ask her, how do you know that about that? person. And it's like through the interview process, you're like, how did this person even remotely feel comfortable telling you this, right? Like being that kind of person in an interview to open people up. But my question to you is there a question or a set of questions that you have maybe zeroed in on that you personally like to ask during that interview to kind of uncover that scrappiness or that grittiness?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Actually I have quite a list that I can send to you, but I think without fail, the first thing is the why, right? And that has to permeate through that person's career. They're consistently should be asking, why am I here? Why do I want to do this? Why do I enjoy this? And then most importantly, asking clients why. Consistently asking, always asking why to everything around you. Why this industry, and then in this position, and then why us, right? What is it about us? What that uncovers is typically those folks that are not meant for our world, which the answers are, I love your team. Your people are so cool. They're so fun. It looks so fun what you guys do. It just looks like I would love to talk. I love to talk to people. I want to talk to. I would love to.
I just want to help everybody,
and I would love to help people. I mean, what better way? And then you explain, well, this is completely the opposite of fun. It's actually not,
well, it is. Well, no, we had to do
like the day to day, like the constant the grind. Yes, the grind.
And then the why here. Again, if the answers are surface level, this office is great. It seems like your compensation is great. You have really great tenure, which I
benefits
on my team. Yeah. If they're surface level, that's not a no for me, but it's a little bit alarming.
Red flag.
If they have gotten to me, right, which is the final stage usually, and if they've gotten that far in the interview process, and they can't tell me your organization is a high growth, dynamic, seems like it is on its way to doubling in business in the next couple of years. I understand your team is committed to growing by this in the next year. I understand that this organization will put me in a position to increase my financial security. Those sorts of things are what you're looking for. So first things are why this industry, that job, and then why this company. And then I will absolutely ask, and Myrna is right. It's shocking how many people will be honest with me.
I'm like,
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Of course. I love it. I will ask straight up questions. What adversity have you faced in your life?
Yes.
And what have you run up against where you've had to say, okay, this is it, do or die time. And what made you do versus die, right? And then it's somebody starts to talk to you about that, you actually mirror them and you share, I've been there. You're empathetic, you're understanding, and you say, I have been there. I've actually been there 4 times in this business. And I appreciate your answer. I appreciate that you had to really go so hard and grow up as quickly as you did. And then that usually opens up the floodgates for a little bit more vulnerability and honesty and trust. And then they'll share other things with you as well.
Which I think that to you. And I think ultimately, and especially for you and the teams that you hire, you need somebody that's going to be willing to do that on your team. Like if you have somebody that you hire somebody that's too cold, too curt, not going to fit the culture. Like, I don't care what kind of a producer you're going to be. Like,
very good point.
You're a cancer. And so I think about leadership and how you've been an inspiring leader. And I know you've come up with all of this on your own. You've never learned from anybody else, right? Like this is, actually, I love to ask this question because who was your most inspiring leader or leaders? And what was your biggest takeaway that you learned from them?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
The big question.
Well, it is a good question. I mean, I would not be where I'm at 100%, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. For Robin Baumgartner, I will say, I wouldn't say, that it's an inspirational relationship, but it is
It was tactical. I mean, really, she was tactical with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the founder of Hard Knock Life.
Yeah.
Gets, I don't know how to explain it without giving her personal information, but where she came from to where she was able to go is a story of inspiration for her. Of course, somebody that you guys had on the podcast, I think she was your first.
Yeah, she was the KG.
KG.
She's somebody that I aspire to be like, because I remember my very first time that my ego was knocked to a point where I actually went home and thought about like leaving, because how dare a leader question my abilities. And what had happened is she'd come in to do a review, and I was like ready with everything that I've ever done that was good, and we were growing and we were in a great place. And she, of course, was like, great, but here's your deficiencies. Here's your weaknesses. Here's your opportunities, is what she said. Here's where you still have room to grow. And I was so upset because I had such an ego at that time, so young and so not ready to be doing the leadership job that I was. But what happened is that I told her that. I came back and said, you know what, I find myself really kind of cranky right now and trying to use professional words, but like,
And if you know Lanell, like, she loves to really emphasize her point with very colorful language. And that's
like you, Myrna.
Exactly. Like Lanell and
I'm surprised we haven't dropped an F-bomb so far. Like, come on.
I know. It's the best. It's the best.
I was trying very hard at that time.
No, it does. It frustrates you. It definitely frustrates you. Another F word, right? But like,
absolutely another great F word. And so what she did that I didn't grasp at the time, but I did later on in my career, was tell me the truth, right? It was to tell me the truth and to say, you have so much that you have left to learn, but that means you have so much more left to do. And it's it's like an opportunity. Truly, quit looking at it like I'm mad at you, or that this was a punitive conversation. It was a teaching conversation. It was I want more from you because I believe in you and I see in you more. And my entire career with her was that, right? Was that kind of directive where it was hard love, but it was love. She was the leader that was, everybody was like, oh, she's tough, she's hard. She was the leader that when we would go to All Stars, or when we were celebrating something, she teared up every time. She would literally tear up every time when she was talking about us and congratulating us. And
the emotion was present. Absolutely.
And she cared. She was vulnerable, you know, and at a time that you were like, okay, this is so authentic. This is so real. She really cares. She really does.
And it's funny that she was, I think about like how she impacted me. And I think she taught me the accountability aspect. Like it changed from me showing up to a meeting where she was like, did you know that this is your opportunity, to me walking in and be like, listen, I know this all looks great, but I'm fucking up over here. Right. And like, it teaches you to be that self, prescribing individual. And I think that if you have a team that comes to you and tells you where they're deficient or where their opportunity is, you know, you're being a good leader. And I think that's
100%.
That's where you know you got the magic going.
And I know that was a long answer, but I wanted to
but it was great.
Person, and that is my current leader, Leslie Boudreau, who I've told you guys I've learned more in the 3 years I've been here than the 20 years I was at Vaco, because of the nature of what we were doing and growing and building, but also just she's freaking brilliant. Like
I love that.
Smart. You guys both met her. You've talked to her. And I mean, what do you think? What do you think when you met with her?
Oh, she was just beyond impressive. Like initially you can tell she's, prepared individual. She came to the meeting with her and I, and we just had a phenomenal conversation, and it was very direct, very straightforward. And, told me what she needed, told her how I could help. And it was, somebody immediately I could say, like, I can tell why Lanell really likes her. And it's great to come across that type of leadership, because you don't always get to see it. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to leave somewhere to go somewhere else to kind of grow and develop because of the different leadership style or the different environment that you're in, you know?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, talking about leadership, obviously there's been so much impact with some of the leaders that you've been a part of. And I'm just making the connection that these are all female leaders that inspire you, which is phenomenal because staffing tends to be very male dominant.
I love working for my female ladies. I love it. Like they inspire me like crazy.
You know what? So you know what I want to say about that? One thing that I would say to the audience, if that's what we're calling it.
Speak directly to the audience, Lanell.
Something I learned way later in my career than I really should have and wanted to is that it's not enough to find a mentor. It's so important to find an advocate.
Yeah.
An advocate is the person who speaks about you and for you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
But when important people are in the room.
Yeah.
And I think that's what female leaders have had to do over the last however many years, but especially in this industry, because it has been male dominated. Find an advocate. Don't get stuck on just a mentor. A mentor can train you and teach you and give you wisdom and pieces of information, but an advocate can actually really guide your career and make something happen for you that you actually didn't know could happen.
And honestly, Lanell, like I can say truly that you were a huge advocate for me in so many different scenarios. And obviously Kathy Gann was too. I mean, I remember once she knew I was going to be in New York doing masterclass training with Rick Frankovitz and all that fun group. And she's like, oh yeah, David's going to be there. And oh, by the way, can you like present on this? And I'm like, what? And it was just like, you know, mentor, you know, but also finding areas where even though I felt like maybe I didn't feel ready, she knew I was. And guess what? It was great. It was a great meeting. I got so much exposure to that because I had that kind of mentorship as well as advocacy from the people, you know, around me. So, you know, because we are talking about leadership, you know, where would you say is like one mistake that you made early on in your leadership? And how has that like led you to be a leader that you are today?
100% ego. I mean, there are books out there that I would absolutely recommend people read. I won't plug any specific, but if you've got an opportunity as a leader to read something about checking your ego at the door, you know, do so. Because it is one of the things that I do think drives loyalty is realizing that you should not be looking for credit. You should not be thinking about how you're going to look or how this is going, the win, the situation you're in, that how's it going to look on you or how is it going to impact you? And it changes your view of not necessarily saying that you need to put people above you, but that they need to you need to be thinking of them just as much as you're thinking of yourself at all times. And rising tides?
Rising tides lifts all ships. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So that's what I would say. I definitely had that mistake early on and didn't really, I wasn't an authentic leader at the very beginning and had to learn that the hard way.
Same. Yep. I'm right there with you.
And I think that's just like a level of like growing up, maturity.
Yes.
You know, just like experiencing life. And
you get burned a few times because you're like, fuck, I wasn't honest.
Well, and life is like very humbling at times. And depending on where you're at in life, like it can really humble you. And all of a sudden you're just like, well, shit, everything I thought I knew before is nothing like I really thought it was, but you need that level of maturity. And so I do think there's a level of just giving people grace in the sense of leadership. But to your point, if you're a leader and you're in charge of these people, then you should be making that effort to get to become better. Just like you want your teams to get better, you know, whether it's like tactical or, you know, whatever, it's really asking yourself to kind of step up to the plate to be that leader that maybe you didn't have or that you weren't, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I tell you what, I know that we are, we
way
want to
over
respect
time.
you, but that's okay. I mean, getting Lanell on a podcast. Letting Lanell on a podcast was like herding a cat with 7 other cats, with chase-dog dogs. But I have 2 questions before we go to the fast four. I want to talk quickly about AI, because we always go there. What do you look at the benefits of how staffing is going to positively affect, or AI is going to affect staffing? And then, you know, what are some things you don't think it's ever going to replace?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will, the obvious efficiencies, right? Creating time for us by way of taking administrative tasks that we've had to do for forever, all the way back to cutting out ads from the newspaper, and feeding stuff to us without us asking. It's working while we're sleeping. I think that's a huge advantage. I also personally am using AI because of my executive coach, Betsy Tong. Everybody should look her up. She is an AI genius, and I have learned to use it to develop myself personally and as a leader by feeding it information about me. Like I will transcribe a meeting that I'm having with my staff, or a call from our executive group, or a national call with our company. I'll feed it into AI so it knows what I am dealing with on a daily basis. So then when I ask a question, it knows where I'm coming from. I don't have to give it color and all of that, right? And the more that you can, give it and feed it, the more it learns you, and you can do that both personally, but also at your desk every day, right? It will never replace relationships. It will never.
Yes, that's the consensus.
People feel, right? How you make people feel. It will never replace that. And you have to have, your clients have got to trust you. Your candidates have to trust you. And loyalty is not going to be driven from that AI bot.
Yes. That's a great point. Absolutely.
I love it.
Last question before we go into our fast four. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice at the start of your recruiting career, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. Gosh. So as a producer?
Just like it could be anything in general, you know?
I'm gonna go back to ego again. I'm gonna go back to that.
I love it.
Because I think it absolutely affected me as a personal producer too. Right? And I think humble is the word you used a minute ago, Myrna. If you can, this industry will humble you pretty darn fast. The faster you allow that to happen, and the faster you really just
embrace it.
Embrace. Thank you. Embrace it to help you, the faster you will succeed.
Yes. Because there's a lot of mental shifting that you have to do. One thing I know Shad shared with us was that scarcity mentality.
Yes.
You know, and maybe
100%.
that's one person's, you know, mentality, but like it could be an ego. It could be like, am I good enough? Like it could be imposter syndrome. Like we're all battling these different internal dialogues.
It could be the other side of things, of arrogance. Like I thought I'm so great, right? And there's always, we're like Hollywood. There's always someone younger, more driven, who has more time, who has
more energy.
Yep, exactly.
God,
they have youth. There's always somebody that is sitting there on the phone making the dials while you're not. And so that is, as a producer, that's something I wish I would have known early on.
Yes, I love that. That's great advice, Lanell. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, let's move on to, so I think it's funny is like we go to this part to figure out who you are behind the scenes, but you're so like present and emotional in who you are. But I have questions on our fast forward. So what's the first one is, what's a show that you can't stop binge watching right now?
Okay, so I'm going to get so much flack for this. I do not watch television.
Okay.
So
I think that is amazing. Actually.
That's amazing. Yes.
I do not watch television. And the reason I said I was going to get flack is therefore I'm a boring person to be at the water cooler or in the bullpen sometimes because everybody's talking about like, these shows and or they're quipping lines from, The Office or, you know what I mean? And I'm like,
yes,
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
So I'm a reader. I'm a voracious reader. I read over 100 books a year, and that is what I fill my time with instead of.
Yes. Well, you'll have to send us a list of some of those books that you
top books. Yes.
We'll
post it. We'll post it with the podcast. Actually, we'll
absolutely.
post Lanell's lovely picks.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So what's one non-work related goal or hobby you're currently passionate about?
Animal welfare. Animals, just animals in general, right?
Yes.
But volunteering and I would love to get to a place where I can foster. Right now we have a dog that is special needs. Let's just say
oh my God, we were on the call and like Lanell's like, it's on you and your face. And like, I'm like, oh, that's.
He is currently like literally locked away. But animals for sure are something that I'm passionate about and trying to find time for.
It's just such a they're just such great creatures that make you like you look at them and play with them. You're like, God, life's okay. Life's okay.
Serotonin, dopamine, all that.
Yes, all the good stuff. Okay, so when you need a hype pick me up, what's your go-to song? Do you have a go-to song? Or something you hear, you're like, I'm dancing.
Well, no, I don't have an I'm dancing song, but I do have a go-to song to hype me up and to like get me in the fighting mood, and that is literally the Rocky theme.
Yes.
It has a personal connotation to it too, because oh gosh, this is so much, but I'm going to put it out there. My husband is from Mexico, and one time in our lives when my children were young, we were visiting his family in Mexico, but I was so nervous about being in Mexico that I stayed on the US side of the border. And he went with his family into Mexico and did some things, and nobody could drive him back. So he ran across the border. He ran across the border like 10 miles to get to us. And the whole time he said he was thinking, dun, 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 dun. And that's
the time to get pumped up.
That's the time that you need to feel invincible, right?
Yes. That's amazing. Oh my God. All right. So last question, and it's about, what's something that you're grateful for in life. But before you answer, I just wanted to say, because I don't know if I ever got a chance to say it, that I'm just so grateful for you, for our time together, for the work that we did.
Yes.
I miss you dearly, and I'm just so glad that we've like connected back, in a podcast of all things. But what's something that you're super grateful for in your life?
I'm grateful for these relationships that I have, even in relationships that I haven't talked to you in 3 years, that today we can pick up.
Yes. Right where we left off. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Like we never left off. And I can't believe the number of relationships like this.
Yes.
Long lasting years, 10, 15, 20 years that I have because of this job, because of this industry. And you know what? Maybe it's like that in other industries too. I don't know what I don't know.
I don't believe it. It's not like this.
I don't care.
I don't. Exactly.
I care about my.
Yes.
I am so grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for, yesterday somebody called me who's still at a Deco group, and she worked for me for 15 years. She's still there. And she called me because she knew my husband had recently had a surgery, and she literally talked to me for 30 minutes, and all she wanted to talk about was me, just me and how I was doing. And like, I would try to turn the conversation and ask a question about her. And she was like, no, I'm not ready for that yet. I have something else I want to know about you. It's incredible.
That's amazing.
The connections that you guys know her. It's Eden Murphy.
My God, Eden.
Love her.
Like she's
such a great
killing
person.
it over there as an executive.
That's amazing. That's
the best you can find. And but just such the best.
A great heart.
Person. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I'm grateful for.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Lanell.
Lanell, we are so grateful for you, and thank you so much for being on our little podcast today. And I'm so excited to share this with the world. And love you so much. Thank you so much for coming, guys.
Yes.
Awesome.
I don't want to say goodbye.
It's not goodbye. just for now.
Exactly. It's not.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.